And our final round one presenter founded the One Straw Society 14 years ago, which is a local Sunshine Coast organic food growers group. She has recently authored 2 books, Gardening for the Faint of Heart and Food Security for the Faint of Heart. And she organizes sustainable micro-farm forums and operates a sustainable living art school here in Roberts Creek. So our final presenter is, the title first is How Health Regulations Are Impairing Local Food Productions. Let's give a welcome to Robin Wheeler.
Yes, I think we're all very happy to see so many people out here showing an interest, and it will be an opportunity for us to all get on the same page with some of the issues that face us. I'm going to talk about what we've been building on, all the problems showing us that we need more food supply, and I'm going to talk about all the powers that are working against that, because they are huge and formidable. But the first thing I'm going to do is just talk a bit about my property. I teach edible landscaping, hoping that one of the steps in food security is that what we grow in our yard has a chance to influence our food resilience as well. We can grow a lot right in our yards, be surrounded by food, harvest it, store it, and help take the pressure off the poor farms trying to feed us in the winter. What becomes clear when we look and analyze farm growth on the Sunshine Coast and BC and in Canada, period, because we're all in the same boat, is that Canada has bought into some huge food regulations when it joined the free trade. That NAFTA brought in a whole raft of regulations that affect not just the mega farms, but little tiny farms. The end result of this would be that in a food crunch, if we were dependent on our farms here, we would all be vegetarians pretty quickly. Vegetarianism is a wonderful thing. It's healthy, and it means that lots of little animals aren't crammed into little cages eating antibiotics. But we know that farm animals also can be an assistance. They can eat grasslands and convert it to food where we couldn't immediately be growing other foods. Chickens and pigs can be very important parts of a farm system. They've been part of the farm systems for century after century. We know they belong in a farm system. But the new regulations have made it all through BC and through Canada that farmers can no longer sell farm animals from the farm gate. They can't butcher a few animals, sell them to their neighbors, make money for feed for the winter anymore. They can ship them to Vancouver to an approved abattoir, but no farmers here seem to want to do that. It's stressful to the animal. It causes a much larger fossil fuel footprint. It costs more money. It costs the farmer a whole day. You need a refrigerated truck to get the stuff out again, and we haven't got the farm animal numbers to make it worthwhile to take these things over in a truck. So what's happening is people are having a very small number of animals, and they're hiding them in their backyards. So we have an underground meat economy where we're fighting over little tiny bits of meat. And it isn't encouraging to farmers because they can't openly request breeding stock. We can't be trucking these animals around and having them in larger areas where people can see them, despite our very tolerant inspectors on the coast. They haven't been harassing people, but it is keeping people very intimidated. As far as chickens go, people say, well, I'll just hide a few in the yard and I'll butcher them for winter and sell them to my neighbors to feed the other ones, to afford to keep the other ones over the winter. But when they go to buy the feed, they have to list their name and phone number now. You have to register yourself when you buy your chicken food, and people are getting intimidated that this is a way that they can be traced if anyone ever had to, whether that's the case or not. So it's just another one of the issues coming up. What's happening throughout BC is that farmers who have spent decades breeding stock, wonderful animal stock, are now eating them. There's no point in keeping your animals, your breeding stock alive when you can never hope to get any cash back from the young. You have to keep working to feed them. People are now eating them all throughout BC. Now we could turn around and say, wow, there must have been a real problem to shut down these farm gate sales of meat. There have been none, zero. We can't find any across Canada, and in the US, they're actually checking as well. They cannot trace any problems from farm gate sales. I don't want to really bring up what the big abattoirs are. I don't want to mention Maple Leaf around here, but you can see that the food problems are not coming from small farms where we feed our neighbors, and our neighbors are the first to complain to us. These regulations are coming down through something called Codex Alimentarius. I have some sheets over there with the farmers' rights, and there is a 45-minute documentary for any policymakers or farmers that want to understand where these international laws are coming from. Can watch this woman be very strident and rant. I admit it, she's being strident and ranting. She's got a very good reason. If we don't all get on board and understand these regulations, they are firming up all over the world and getting tighter and tighter. So fewer and fewer people are being able to move food on a small, spontaneous basis. So that's one of the issues. The more immediate issues are things like keeping our eggs. New regulations, farm eggs have to be kept at 4 degrees Celsius for a farmer to sell them. Well, how likely is that? They take them to the farmer's market. They're usually sold within the hour. But you almost have to have a plug-in refrigerator to maintain that. How can you keep your farm stall at your farm gate electric to keep your fridge plugged in to keep those eggs at 4 degrees, remembering that all over the world, people don't even refrigerate their eggs for weeks at a time. So that's just adding another layer. We also have things like these are what farmers are supposed to get. Vendors selling at farmers markets get this list of things. They're supposed to be satisfying all these regulations to sell food at a farmer's market. Here's the new application right here. You have to say how the food is wrapped, how it was treated. You have to list ingredients of every single item you sell at the market. If you make a change, you have to list those changes and send that into your health department. Of course, they don't have to know about the pesticides in it or anything else. They just have to know that your ingredients are conforming. And there are, page 3, lists all the ways that the health authority requires all these listings. And to facilitate the acceptance process, vendors must submit completed laboratory test results with their application. And this is even for the low-risk foods. Now, I think a lot of the vendors aren't doing this, but for some who could be doing very innovative things, this is very intimidating to spontaneous production of new foods coming out very quickly that ripen on the farm right now, looking at these pages and pages of regulation. Again, we go back and say, wow, we must be poisoning a lot of people at our farmers markets. Not so. So we really have to look at these regulations and how they are being very intimidating all the way around between the meat. We could start talking about the raw milk thing where people used to have group cows here. I used to be part of a cow co-op. Go down and get my jug of milk. Of course, now farmers are getting fined for selling raw milk. And if they get caught, if we had nasty inspectors, they could be fining farmers $25,000 and up for breaking meat regulations. So those are just some things that are very worrisome. So I think it's time, as far as policymakers are concerned, to really investigate all of our personal powers and our circles of power when we're off coast, talking to other policymakers. How can we grab them by the shoulder and say, what the hell are we doing? Provinces can back out of the farm gate regulations. Saskatchewan has, Nova Scotia has, BC could as well. The coast would have to talk deeply about our attachment to Vancouver to get on that boat, because now we're tied to them. But still, I think there's work to be done there to just claw these regulations away. The farmers weren't hurting anybody, and let some free movement happen. So please feel free to pick up one of those slips of paper. It's got the website of that Codex Alimentarius so we can all understand it, or be very happy vegetarians. Thank you.